Hey guys, we are back again with our partners over at FANATICS Sportsbook and talking fan cash. Most sportsbooks, well, their rewards are just fluff, but fan cash is the ultimate sports currency. When you bet with FANATICS Sportsbook, you get up to 10% fan cash back on your wagers, win or lose. Did we mention that they are giving away millions in fan cash this year and that you can use that fan cash on anything in the FANATICS universe? Go check it out yourself and download the app today. FANATICS Sportsbook. Winning hits different here. Must be 21 or over. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777. Massachusetts, call 800-327-5050. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY. Maryland, visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Not available in all states. Terms apply. See FANATICS Sportsbook app.
Hey, we're back with a song of the century. Holy cow, I'm jacked up now. That's epic. Kev cooked. Our man Kev Words with the song. That's awesome intro. I'm ready to go. We're back. DJ Zullo here with me. You guys know him by now as the detail junkie. Still a defender of Julius? Still a defender of Julius. Always and forever.
Always.
The doctor of jump shots, the great, the one and only DJ Zullo. How are you doing, friend? We are approaching a new Knicks season. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. Hopefully some of those jump shots start falling when the regular season kicks off for our Knicks. But yeah, happy that preseason is behind us. I was feeling a little antsy today, worried about body language and Tibbs stealing our secrets and talking to the enemy. It got a little cantankerous for yours truly, as we anticipate what I think, whether we have different opinions on the upside of this team. Ultimately, I think we were all in for a very fun, interesting, exciting, pressure-packed season, and I'm just really looking forward to kicking off Wednesday night.
So let me take a step back because I was so jacked up by the intro song that I forgot to mention I am Ben Ritholtz.
Yes, you are.
DJ. We're on the Knicks Film School X's and O's show. This is presented by FANATICS Sportsbook. So I think I got all that out of the way now. And I just want to say, this show is going to be coming at you more often this season. I think the target is once a week, give or take. So we're going to be having more conversations with you all, whether live, whether recorded, more basketball for me and DJ to talk about. As DJ said, this is a pressure-packed, massive, the most important Knicks season since 1999. I think the most consequential season since 1999, and therefore we're gonna have a lot of talk to talk about. And let's start here because before we get to some questions from the crowd and start to get ourselves back into Knicks talk. We have a new coach. That's the big change. We have some new bench pieces that we've now gotten to see in action a little bit in preseason. We've gotten some press conferences, interesting ones over the last couple of days. So let's start, DJ, with just like a quick, from your perspective, preseason system starting to be put into place here. What have you seen? What has stuck out? What are you interested in most going into game one Wednesday night?
Well, it's very different, obviously. And, you can look at some of the numbers, and I know the pace, which I think the Knicks might have been last in the preseason in pace. But that's also, you have to factor in the defensive side of the ball because pace is 50% offense, 50% defense. And the team did not shoot the ball well. But if one of the positive signs is that they were really getting the three ball up. And I think, they didn't make a lot of them, but I think the process for them, for the most part, gave me some optimism that this is going to work ultimately. Now, I I think it was like right when he was hired, I mentioned this is going to take some time. And I think you're seeing that with maybe some comments during some of the press conferences today about players maybe still adjusting into these new roles. I think while Jalen Brunson has looked very good at times, I think he's still adjusting to what I think is going to be asked of him. And I think you have to give this thing some patience. I think that is where when the season kicks off, I think patience is going to have to be the number one thing we're going to all have to have in the back of our minds, because it's going to be very easy for us to look at their performance early on. And if this offense is not humming on all cylinders, to start to ring the alarm bells. I do want to, and I'm talking to myself when I say this, I do want to just caution everyone that this is going to take some time, because you look at, while the playbook is still a work in progress, and Mike Brown really didn't call plays. It was more conceptual stuff in the first, I think, 2 or 3 games. In the Hornets game, there was more of a full playbook, but the Knicks were missing a lot of players. So it was very tough to really get a full idea of what this offense is going to look like. But you saw specifically Jalen Brunson having a more intentional idea of bringing the ball up the court, getting it up with like 2 or 3 on the off the shot clock, sometimes 5 seconds, getting it to the point where you're getting multiple looks at the rim, you're getting your first shot up at like 15 seconds on the shot clock. There is something that to be said for that, and I think they're going to have some rusty moments early on, but eventually I do think this offense is going to be, I think, more resilient come the playoffs, which is the ultimate test for this team.
Man, it's funny, like hearing you talk about it's going to take some time is echoing so much of what we said last season early in the year, because of the late seismic shifting trade of Karl-Anthony, of getting Karl-Anthony Towns in house, and how that changes their whole look in offense and defense. And one of the things, and this is not meant, I do not want to spend this time relitigating the coaching decision. One of the things you did lose, though, when you hired Tibbs was the opportunity for just straight continuity going into year 2 of that experiment. Even with some fringe pieces changing and getting a little, some reinforcements on the bench, you would have had essentially the same roster with the same coach. And there's a benefit to that. And you will see, to your point, you are going to see some growing pains here. You're going to see some indecision because of the change of system. And like, you can practice it as much as you want. There's limited preseason minutes. It's going to take some time. The luxury you have is it's an 82 game season in a weak Eastern Conference. Like, it shouldn't derail the season by any stretch, but you are clearly seeing hesitation on the offensive end at times, and a adjustment that is taking place in real time on the floor. And it is interesting to watch. It's like kind of a fascinating thing to watch. A team that has played a very similar way offensively now for years and is now changing that. And it is unfair to expect it to click right away. The pressure is on, though, and it's going to have to happen fairly quickly. But it is important to give some grace here as the team adjusts. Just like jumping into some details, Deej, like the first thing that jumps off, I'm sure every fan out there noticed, is the initiation of the action almost always going to that little pitch action, or at least a pitch option. So, right, when Jalen comes down the floor, he can basically crisscross, as it were, with another person who's either trailing or behind. It could be different players. Every player, I think, has taken that spot at some point in the game, in the preseason. It's often going to be Karl-Anthony Towns, because he is often trailing a play after a rebound, or even after a make. That has been interesting. Talk a little bit about that, what you've seen there, what you like, what the Knicks have to work on.
Yeah, well, the great thing about it is, and you alluded to the optionality built within it, and it's such a simplistic. It's not even a play design. It's more of just the concept of how they want to start and initiate their offense, because the advantage of it is you have, as you mentioned, Jalen Brunson coming down the floor, usually on the right side of the floor, so we can get to his strong hand going left. So you get the advantage of, he can pitch it. He can also keep it and get downhill, typically with a double gap spacing alignment on that side, with only that corner filled. So you don't have that gap defender loaded up for him. And that's a read he's made a few times, where he'll just keep it and then usually get to an advantageous situation. And then the obvious pitch action, if it's Mikal Bridges, and this is probably of all the players, I don't know what his stats look like, but to me, he looked the most comfortable in this offense. And it makes sense. And you've talked about this last year, how he greases the wheels, his movement, the way he could finish, his speed getting up and down the floor, just his general movement in the half court as well. And once he gets that pitch, it's giving him a runway with some space to operate. And I think if you're Jalen Brunson and you're defending Jalen Brunson, you're now worried about whether or not we're going to switch this action. And if we are, and Brunson keeps it, we're in holy hell. Just this is going to be a disaster for us. And if Bridges gets it, then he can get into his right-hand drive or reverse it back to Brunson. And that's where you get the big, whether it's Mitch or Huck Porty, typically with Cat filling the right corner, that big runs up and you get a step up screen and or you can get some 2-man action there. So there's a lot of things that they could do out of it. There's 3-4 things. And if you have Cat spacing in one corner and Anunoby in the left, you have 2 great shooters on both sides. You have a really good spacing environment for those 2 players that are involved in that pitch action to read it and then hopefully get into a situation where you can drive, get downhill, get into the paint, and then, as Mike Brown likes to talk about, get those spray threes, which the Knicks did a pretty good job during the preseason of generating.
Yeah, it's such an interesting pivot in the sense that what the Knicks struggled to do, I thought at times, especially in the playoffs last year, was forced defensive decisions. And even, there's a lot of complaints about the Cat Brunson pick and roll or lack thereof. And the reality of that play was almost every team was going to switch it. Now, the Pistons didn't, and at times, and we don't have to relitigate that series either. Certainly Boston was going to switch it. And then the time it takes to break down that switch, whether it was via a Towns post-up, whether it was via a Brunson ISO.
Right.
It's just predictable offense, and it's by nature slow offense because you end up mismatch hunting. And that's the reason the Knicks did go away from that. And there's nothing Mike Brown can really do about that because what is going to happen more often than not is teams are going to put switchable defenders on Brunson and Towns. And certainly that will be the case when Towns is playing the 4. It's much easier to do that. And you could stick your 5 on Mitch. What this allows them to do in kind of just like an interesting side doorway is, even though it's not a standard pick and roll, they are interacting now when Towns is in that position on so many more possessions. And you're forcing at least a defense to make a decision that isn't as obvious or predictable because the play itself, just that little pitch action, as you said at the beginning, can branch off into so many things. I can pitch it. I can keep it. I can stay on the right side of the floor. I could pivot into a pick and roll if I wanted to. Brunson could pitch it and then screen for Cat. Like just that little 2 men converging. It's almost like a play action in a way where you can hand it off or you can fake it. And I like that conceptually. And I feel like that's where it's coming from. And that's why it was instilled in this offense right away. It's such an obvious thing that they're doing. It's like, let's get an early interaction between our best players and force the defense on the move to make a decision. And I think that's going to yield fruit. I like that conceptually. And that's before getting to the fact that both Brunson and Cat are very good at attacking unpredictably when a defense is on the move. And Brunson's ability to keep like that, he's so clever with his fakes. It just kind of brings out the best in him in the way that he can outmaneuver a defense.
Yeah.
Just
he'll open up. Yeah. He'll actually open up to the point. It's like an inverted step to sell the DHO and then keep it, then he's got, and it's always the sliver of an advantage that once he gets it, as you know,
you can't get back in front.
It's over. Yeah.
So and little young ball handlers out there should watch Jalen Brunson because every move is sold. He doesn't have the lightning straight line speed to get by guys, but every move is sold to the max. So that early interaction allows him to disguise things, as opposed to bringing up the ball and waiting for his pick and roll, his pistol actions, whatever he was running. Even the gut Chicago's he was running with Tibbs, where he's fighting to get the ball, and now it ends up pivoting into a pick and roll, and now he's got to kind of scan the floor. This is quicker, and I like that. I think the more guys kind of just run with it, I feel like it's going to yield some fruit. Some of the spacing concepts has been interesting. As opposed to kind of the automatic 45 cut, they've been working with some wheel spacing, which I like. Kind of like a modern Cavs type of spacing where the wing spaces to the corner and the corner cuts, as opposed to the slot guy cutting through and then the corner coming up to the wing. So I like that, but this stuff is going to take time, and where guys fit in is going to take time. I would say on the whole, I was like, if I was super hopeful about Brown coming in and kind of totally totally changing this offense and making it into like this like beautiful fast-paced offense, I think I'm a little hesitant now to accept that's going to take place. Certainly in the first X amount of games, it's going to take some time. I think that's obvious, but we'll see. There is a personnel thing to this too, where you have Jalen Brunson is a certain type of point guard, and how much do you want to change that? And that tension exists, and I think you're seeing it with Jalen through the preseason.
Yeah, and the other thing is, that when that we talked about that slot to slot flip, ball reversal, that big steps up in the Sacramento offense when Sabonis was the 5, he would set that screen or he would just flash to the elbow, and then he's a hub playmaker. And with Mitch, you don't really have. They did a little bit of it in game 1 against the 76ers, and it looked pretty bad when they asked Mitch to almost act as if he was a hub and had to make those types of reads. The other thing Mitch is struggling with, and this is the disappointment from my perspective of like him being load managed, is because I think of all the players, he probably has one of the biggest adjustments that is being a little undervalued right now in the fan base, because Brunson, Cat, everyone's changing and having to adjust. But I think those players have such high IQs offensively, and they're so talented that it's going to maybe not be seamless. They're going to figure it out. I'm a little pessimistic about Mitch, because you'll see these moments where the timing requires Mitch to flash and get that step up screen set in a way that is required, where he's sprinting to the screen and he's jogging and he's just sort of like loafing his way up there. And part of that is just, he's not used to that sort of timing. There's some fatigue stuff. So there's going to be more asked of Mitch than at any point of his career in some of these sets. And it does bring to mind the idea of like, how much are we really going to see Cat as the 5? Because when Mike Brown was hired, that to me was the most obvious way to get a lot of that Sacramento offense instilled with the Knicks, was Cat at the 5, because he could do some of the Sabonis things. He obviously has the much more threatening jump shot. So maybe you can instill some of that and then have Jalen Brunson play some more off ball like De'Aaron Fox did. But if you're going to have Mitch play the 5, and I do understand the idea of trying to have a baseline defense that is going to be competent, and it's completely reasonable and defensible, but I do wonder if this offense is just not going to be able to reach the heights we're expecting, or even that they've reached under Tom Thibodeau, if Mitchell Robinson is, playing hopefully 60 games, playing 25 minutes a night, and he's your starting center. I do wonder about that. Now, there's always going to be time for Cat at the 5 with bench units, but ultimately, and this is the big question, like, is this going to have to be a Cat at the 5 look to really reach the ceiling, or does Mike Brown not view this defense with Cat and Brunson to be good enough to be a championship level defense? And again, I think that's one of the big questions. And, if he starts Mitch, that gives us a clue what he's thinking, but I don't think it necessarily proves that the Cat at the 5 is not the best way to go.
Yeah. Look, when they got Cat, I was extremely adamant that the only reason you get Cat is to play with the 5. The investment is so large, and if you get him, and look, to Tibbs' credit, he did that, right? I mean, at times maybe he should have, and didn't have the luxury of Mitch early in the season. Right. Maybe that was, but he tried Cat at the 5 all season long, including in the playoffs. It was always there for him as a big part of his lineup construction. I imagine it will be with Brown too. We'll have to see. There's only so much we can know right now. But I wonder if part of Cat's interesting press conference today was, this is something he dealt with in Minnesota, obviously, where he's going to start games at the 4 with a rolling, limited offensive center. Where does he fit into the offense? It's very difficult to figure out. You know, he almost becomes a spacer, and that's not where he wants to be. And look, last season too, it was the case that Cat took over games more often in the second quarter when he played with the bench units. I think that's an important part of keeping him as a focal point of the offense, because Jalen Brunson is a ball dominant player. He's not going to not be a ball dominant player. He hopefully will be a little bit less of one. So, you know, a lot to be seen there to sort out with Cat. But now, you know, you mentioned Mitch. So we get this strange press conference with Mike Brown. And again, like, I thought maybe it's, you know, I think we always knew part of it was the organization is very tight-lipped. So whichever coach they hire is going to be tight-lipped. And this was a bit Tibbs-esque, I would say, in its refusal to provide any information on it, but we're getting kind of strange answer. So he's being load managed, but he might not be available for game 1. So strange. What's your thought there? What do you think is going on? Maybe you don't have any insight, but like, does this concern you?
Yeah, you said it. I mean, to load manage a player so he played, I think, just the first half of game 2. Maybe Andrew can confirm that. I'm thinking he played a lot of game 1, and then I think just the first half of game 2, sat the second half, and I don't think we've seen him since. So he hasn't played in a long time. And if you're load managing him, I think that process has already begun so you can get him ready for game 1 against the Cavaliers, in a game that, listen, is it the most important opener of all time? It's not, but this team you couldn't beat last year. I think there is something to be said about the psyche of the team. Most of the players are coming back that played last year that couldn't beat this team. Mitch, obviously, especially against this team, is a problem for them. So yeah, it's a concern for the reason I mentioned, that you want Mitch to try to develop the chemistry and feeling of playing in this offense that is just vastly different than what he's ever experienced. And then if we're already dealing with a potential, and look, Mike Brown didn't say he was injured, but it wouldn't shock me that he's dealing with something that's beyond simply keeping him healthy. Like this feels more than load managing, I guess is the way I would say. Yeah. And that's a big concern at this point.
Mitchell Robinson played 18 minutes in game 1 in Abu Dhabi, played 13 minutes in game 2 in Abu Dhabi, and then played 13 minutes in game 3, the first game back home against the
that's right,
Minnesota Timberwolves, and then never saw the court again.
Yeah. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you,
That's Andrew Claudio, everybody. You may know him.
That's me. Yes.
Yeah. So let's hope he plays game 1. And then before we kind of, I know we got to get an ad read in here, but before we get there, I want to ask you one more question, Deej. And that is defensively. I frankly, because of this, the lineups in and out and who was playing, had a bit of a difficult time kind of detecting any real schematic consistency, I would say. Your thoughts on just like preseason defense from a schematic perspective, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that stood out was just the Knicks are going to seem to be much more loaded up in driving gaps to maybe cut off some of those rim attempts. And it reminded me a little bit of how the Knicks defended in Boston in the playoffs, where, you know, you would get the switch, whether it was Brunson or Cat, isolated against one of the Celtics, you know, whether Jaylen Brown or Tatum, and the Knicks were really loaded up to the point where they were trying to stave off the drive before it even happened, and then have that one-way closeout back to the shooter. So I think from my perspective, that's carried over to the point where it feels like Bridges and Anunoby, specifically when we've seen OG in the preseason, have really just tried to be as big as possible in those driving gaps. And it's especially Mikal when he hasn't had to guard the ball. And I think he's been really impressive as an off-ball defender, and he's just seems more in tune with being as long and rangy as possible to take away those sight lines. And you know this, like as a offensive player, if you can't see the drive, it's really hard to, even though you think you can get there, if you have guys loaded up and help, it just makes it very difficult. And then the Knicks, especially Bridges and Anunoby, they have the length and athleticism to get back out to shooters. Now, the issue with that is going to be, talked about the wheel offense, Cleveland game one. They were the team that sort of made that type of offense, I think, popularized it last year. That offense is designed specifically to take away that help defender from that gap. So if that wheel is happening and you're loaded up heavy in that gap, it's going to be very difficult to then get back to the shooter, which was started in the slot or the wing and is now in the corner. So that it's not a foolproof system, but I do like the idea, the concept of trying to take away driving gaps, especially when Jalen Brunson is guarding his man. If it's a switch situation where you want to just be and help early, and maybe that'll allow the Knicks to maybe switch a little more liberally with Brunson, which I think it needs to happen. I think a little more this year. Just trust him to switch more. We saw it in the playoffs. It wasn't perfect, but it was good enough. And then just use your talented wings to load up and then have them get back out to those shooters and make it as difficult as possible.
Yeah. I mean, if you start Mitch, one thing you got to say is that lineup is just massive.
Mm-hmm.
And a driver looking at, even if Brunson's on him and you're looking at Bridges and Anunoby in the gaps, Cat somewhere in the middle and Mitch staring down at you from down low, that's a lot of length. And you would think that lineup should be very good defensively. Even, Cat at the four is a proven commodity on the defensive end. Like, he can do it and he'll rebound really well from that position. And then you add those two wings. It's pretty cool. And we'll see if Bridges can do a bit more on the ball than he did last year. Now, Deuce McBride looked really good on the ball at times.
Yep.
We'd love to see that lineup. We'll see how often we see it after a year of not seeing it at all. So that'll be interesting. But
I do want to just quickly, I think Deuce has looked really good on the defensive side. I don't know if the offense since game one has not been great, but it feels like he's been unleashed a little bit to be just a little more in like attack mode off the ball to really be a disruptor, which, coming out of college felt like his calling card. And yeah, he has generated steals as a pro, but it just hasn't felt necessarily like it was he's tapping into the full potential there. And I think part of that is the low risk defensive scheme that Tom Thibodeau prefers. So I do like the idea that Bridges and McBride specifically, and throw OG in there as well, and Hart, who can play passing lanes as well. Like, the Knicks are going to be a little more turnover focused. And that, even if you're not going to be as stout on the other side as a Thibodeau defense, if you're going to create havoc on the defensive side, which this team has just generally not been good at since, it goes back decades, literally. They've had just a team that's been more stout and less risk taking. If you can add that element, I think that'll go a long way. And McBride, to me, in the preseason, seems to be a little more free to make plays and just be a disruptor, which I think is going to go a long way in those lineups that he's playing on to really hold up on the defensive side.
Yeah, they should be a higher turnover generating team this year. I think that should happen just based on the personnel. It makes sense. It fits the personnel. Mitch being in the lineup more often, he is a turnover generator, both with blocks and steals. So agreed on that. And I do think you saw a bit more freedom given to the wings to really ball hawk, which I like, even if you're going to give up some things now and then. But that feels like the league's trending that way to real pressure and risk taking. And I hope the Knicks tap into that. So, Andrew, why don't you come up here, do what you got to do, son? What's going on?
Well, what I got to do is just agree with both of you that I really hope Mitchell Robinson plays on Wednesday. I'm just as confused by the emphasis on load management after a full week. We're managing Mitchell Robinson with 1 week before the first game of the season. And if you want to take this as a bit of an injury report, and I'm happy to, on behalf of our good friends over at FANATICS Sportsbook, say that should you place a prop bet on Mitchell Robinson on Wednesday and he has to leave the game mysteriously, the fine folks at FANATICS Sportsbook will still honor your parlay, because as we know, injuries are a part of the game. But when an injury takes your bet and your sportsbook leave you hanging, that hurts. That's why our partners at Fanatics Sportsbook hit different. They've got fair play coverage for you. Fanatics fair play coverage for you. Fanatics Sportsbook protects all pro basketball player prop bets from first half injuries. That's in the first half of the game, to be clear. This isn't just protection, it's real value for your plays. Fanatics is the home of fair play all season long. Your old sportsbook won't do that, so it's time to switch. Download the Fanatics Sportsbook app. Winning hits different here. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Connecticut residents, call 877-888-789-777. Massachusetts, call 800-327-5050. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY. Maryland residents, visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Not available in all states. Terms apply. See the Fanatics Sportsbook app.
Such classy folks at Fanatics, right?
Yes,
I mean, like,
at Fanatics, indeed. Is your hat from Fanatics?
of course it is.
Huh, so is mine. Shout out to the fine folks at Fanatics. Indeed.
Shout out. Yeah, Fanatics are great people, classy individuals that if Mitchell Robinson disappears mysteriously, they'll help you out.
They'll still honor your parlay. What player did you get at the shootout at Fanatics Fest at the 3-point contest?
That's
Hold on, let's put Benjy on a one shot, DJ.
That's
there it is.
Random Devin Booker fella guy that I won.
We kind of need to manifest that he ends up being a Knick, so that way
the guy before me won like a signed like Mellow jersey or something, and I get up there and they give me a Devin Booker. What are those things called?
A Funko Pop?
There you go, Funko
Is that
Pop.
what it's called?
There you go.
I just didn't know if that was a Funko Pop or not.
Yeah, DJ, before you were like, yeah, Ben, you know how it is, like when you drive and there are guys clogging the driving. I didn't drive. No, I don't know anything about that.
You were pulling. Yeah.
I was just stepping back. I was
going.
No one was clogging my driving lanes. I promise. Anyway, all right. So I don't know, DJ. Anything else you wanna touch on?
Let's see. It's just I don't want to be negative here.
Don't be negative, but you can be.
But I am wondering about this bench.
Yeah,
and I think
because Gershon's 283, that's the problem.
I think Mike Brown said that there was some. I don't know. It seemed like Mike Brown was not buying those numbers, but those numbers came from somewhere. And listen, when your 6'8" power forward is pushing 3 bills, we got some issues. And I will say this was after watching him play and wondering if he looks a little slower than he did in Philadelphia. So maybe that's playing a part in it, but he's outweighing Mitch by about 15 pounds, and Mitch it's much, much taller and also not a small man. So, I listen, I think if Hart and McBride are coming off the bench, I think you have those two, you're in really good shape, right? Those are two. Hart's a starting quality player. McBride is like a fringe starting quality NBA player. You're in good shape there. Now, behind those two players, you have whether Gershon or Jordan Clarkson, Huck Porty, Shamet. You have this like mix of unproven.
Shamet is back.
Shamet is listen, I know Shamet. He defends now. He's making shots.
Shamet is there to torture me for the rest of my existence, and maybe I deserve it.
I think you deserve it a little bit,
man.
But I do. Listen, Jordan Clarkson is at the age where it may not be great anymore. And
can I push back? I believe in Jordan Clarkson. I think Jordan Clarkson's gonna have a nice year.
Okay, he might, and he brings a certain element of chaos that the Knicks haven't had in a while that I think is going to be nice.
I think in a kind of a funny way they need his playmaking, which you don't. Mm-hmm. That's not how you think of Jordan Clarkson. But I'm telling you, when he is right of mind, which was not the case in Utah, as Mike Breen knows well, when he is right of mind, he can be a good secondary playmaker for this team, especially when Brunson's sitting. Because they are lacking that. Like they just don't. When Brunson was on the bench last year, it was not that they scored actually at a very good clip because Cat went crazy. I don't think in the playoffs it was as easy when teams were really locked in on Cat, and when you just don't have a guy on the floor that can beat someone off the dribble, and there were literally lineups that they were playing where there was not one person who could beat someone off the dribble. I think that's a very valuable. Like Deuce McBride's not that guy. Like we've said it for years now, he's a wing, really. He's not really a guard in that way. Like Jordan Clarkson can beat you off the dribble and make a play. and I think it's needed on the team. I think he's going to do it, and he's going to have some games. I really do. I believe in him. I'm putting myself out there for him and not for Landry Shamet. I was secretly hoping, I really was, and I have nothing against Landry Shamet.
It sounds like you do a little bit.
I might have a little bit. No, I just don't like how he shoots. Like, why do you shoot from there? You're a shooter in the NBA.
It's a low release.
What is that? Like, I was secretly hoping Garrison Matthews would win the job because he shoots from high. I like that. He has a nice high release. I'm like, whatever. Landry, his playoff performance was what it was. So he did some good things. So I got to give it to him. And he's not a bad 10th, 11th guy. He's fine to have out there and take some minutes. It's totally fine with me. But I like Clarkson. I think he's going to be good. Yabu's an interesting player. Like, they have to figure out when and where he's going to play. That makes sense for him. And I think that'll be a bit of a balancing act again. Like, we're not sure really what the lineups are going to look like. So we got to give that some time. And I think it might take Yabu some time to settle into a role that makes sense for him. So we'll see. But to your point, Hart and McBride is 6th and 7th is really strong. And one thing we were talking about, the little pitch action before. Josh Hart, who we haven't had a chance to see it. If Josh Hart is the second guy back with Brunson at times, and he's the one receiving the pitch, he can be real. If he's going to his right and he can get a step that way, I like that. And I think we'll see that with him as the pitch guy especially if he's a defensive rebounder or whatever, and he moves the ball off the floor. Now he's trailing, and Brunson just kind of pitches it to him. If he can get a step going downhill, he's so tough in that situation. He only could really do it in transition opportunities, like real transition opportunities in the last few years. But you add this little pitch action to his game, I kind of like that for him. I think he can get downhill and make some plays.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, it'll hopefully he gets over the back injury and we get to see Josh Hart in a role that is more conducive to his skill level and, frankly, his age at this point and the wear and tear he's had to deal with the last couple of years. But yeah, I think I'm not like worried about the bench per se, but I just, 8 through 10, I don't love, I guess, at this point. And Gershon might surprise me. I just defensively, it looks so bad in the preseason. Like, not just the movement and like the lack of vertical anything. It's just like some of the miscommunications. Like the Knicks had about 5 or 6 blown coverages against the Hornets, and he was involved in 4 of them, and he didn't play a lot. So you always wonder like whose fault was it? But when there's a common denominator, you can sort of make an inference that it's that guy that's sort of causing the issue. But he can shoot. He didn't make shots in the preseason, but you do hope the shot is real. And if that's the case, then the Knicks should have a good bench. But I'm just a little concerned about the Knicks have a lot of good or decent players 1 through 10, but I just wonder about 8 through 10. And maybe it's not a big deal ultimately, but I think in this day and age, you need to play 9 and 10 guys.
Well, yeah, and that'll be a fun part of this, because if Mike Brown stays true to who he's been in his career, as opposed to with Tibbs, where it felt like, all right, whoever the 10-man rotation, 9-man rotation is, that's who you're going to see for the first 20 games. I think we'll see different combinations. I think he'll throw Kolek out there. I think he'll throw Hukporti out there. I think he'll maybe even Daddier, maybe not. I don't know. But he'll go to number 12 randomly. And I think that's exciting, because I think the Knicks those pieces are all interesting to me. I want to see them get out there and see what they can do. So hopefully not because of injury, but just because Mike Brown likes to throw things out there sometimes. We'll get to see that. I thought Kolek had some really great moments in the preseason. Hukporti had some moments in the preseason. I think he's still figuring stuff out, but I think maybe he can
on the defensive end, especially, right?
Yep.
Just not in the right spot a lot. But offensively, like Mike Brown's talked about it, he is a elite rim runner. And like he might be end to end, other than Bridges, he might be the fastest player on the team, and just might be the most diverse role man on the team. Like he can get to a floater, he could obviously finish above the rim, can make a pass, make a read. If the first option is not there, like he can get to his second read, and it looks pretty good. And then we'll see about the other. I thought Kolek, obviously the last 2 games, he just looked in command of the offense and aggressive against poor opponents. And guys that probably won't play in the NBA much this year, but I think it was a step forward from him after a kind of a lackluster summer league. So I did find myself after the preseason feeling a little more confident that Kolek has a shot here to be in the rotation than I did before the preseason started. So that's a positive sign, I guess.
Yeah, he's such an interesting case study because it's so there and it's so obvious that he is a really tremendously great passer, an intuitive passer, and a tremendous feel for the game. And I just think it kind of comes down to does the athletic level get to a point where he's just can't impose his game? It seems to be that simple, and we'll see. Because it's not like I know the talent is there. It's so obvious and clear to me since the first time I watched him that this guy is a really special passer and a special point guard. And it just okay, but he's whatever he is, 6'1", 6'2", and doesn't jump well. And there is a level at which it becomes nearly impossible to play a guy like that who can't impose his will offensively to the extent he needs to. Defensively there are going to be issues. I think he's generally been okay, but he's not going to be a positive defensive force on there. So he's got to really perform on offense. And in order to really perform on offense, he needs to be able to get to those plays. And it's just going to be interesting to see if he gets a chance. But all right.
A lot of extremes for him. Yeah, just like you're a great passer, but the downsides are just really apparent. And the other thing is, the shot off the catch, I think, looks really good, but it's not been that consistent. So, I don't think he needs to develop the pull up, which would really help him. But I don't think it's critical for him to be an NBA rotation player. But he will have to make shots off the catch, and I think that'll come because it looks good. And he's got good touch. Yeah. I'm confident in that, but he will have to see the ball go through the net enough to really stretch teams and have that second layer of diversity as an offensive player.
Agreed. All right. So look, let's take the last, what do we got? 18 minutes or so for some questions in the chat.
Yeah.
We're happy you guys are all here with us. Pleasure to have you. Excited for X's and O's to be back. Excited to field some questions from our brilliant, handsome, and beautiful listeners. Shall we?
All right. Let's do it.
Pastor Claudio starts us off. The legend still has Tibbs as his icon there. Which
was he watching a Celtics practice?
He might be spying on a Knicks practice to divulge all their secrets to the Celtics. Tibbs quickly getting on our bad side.
He's not going to be. I was hoping there would be a nice Tibbs at the Garden moment this year. I think Kat talked about. That's not happening now. I mean,
this was kind of. I don't think it's a big deal. I think it's interesting.
It's just the narrative of it all. And
the Celtics know what the Knicks didn't do anything so brilliant that they switched a lot and they forced the Celtics to take a lot of bad shots, and then the Celtics collapsed in on themselves. But I don't think Mazzulla was sitting in there listening to Tibbs going, now I know how to win. But a film session on day I know right now. Tibbs.
I know Tibbs. It's a little much, man.
You know what?
All right.
I get it though, because I get it. He was
I get
fired.
It too.
He's had a lot of success. They fired his ass, and I imagine he's not thrilled about that. And I don't know if he's going to come back to the Garden, and I don't know if he has good feelings towards that. Well, hopefully one day though, because he does deserve that. He does deserve that moment. Mm-hmm. All right. Anyway, can you guys talk about how automatics work and why automatics is in quotes? Automatics, and why Mike, I assume that means Brown, didn't run sets. Interesting to have a coach where you can refer to him as his first name, because nobody ever said why Tom didn't run sets. So DJ, how does this offense work with the automatics, and what does Mike mean by that? And he didn't run many sets, if any, over the course of the preseason. What is that all about?
Yeah, it's I think he's trying to develop the habits of this team to sort of, if you're going to play faster, there's going to be decisions made faster. And this team did not have to do that under Tom Thibodeau. And that's a big change. Automatics are in the offensive end, I guess the best way to describe that is like you make a decision as an offensive player based on how the defense is defending you. And one of the simplest ways to, as an example, where if you're running a high ball screen and the on-ball defender goes under the screen, the automatic then is to rescreen to force the over, because an offensive player like a Jalen Brunson is going to want to get that defender on his hip to get that micro advantage and then create off that. If they go under the screen, they're sort of distorting that option. But if you rescreen that, which is the automatic portion of it, then you can 99 times out of 10, that defender is now going to have to go back over the screen based on the positioning. And now Brunson can sort of go to work with the defender on his hip and take advantage there. If you're in a switching style, if you're playing against a team that's switching a lot, it doesn't make a lot of sense to set screens. It makes a lot more sense to slip out, set go screens. Those are automatics based on how defenses are guarding you or defending you in their scheme and those things. And those are aspects to just how you need to develop habits based on those things, and not running sets is going to maybe hasten that process a little bit. And I think that's probably where Mike Brown was coming from when he wasn't running a full complement of plays the first 4 games of the preseason. And I think it makes sense because this team just is, as we talked about to open the show, is going to have a learning curve here. And if you can force them to be in uncomfortable scenarios where they're having to read the defense and make decisions based on that early on, then you can maybe get them to the point where they're comfortable and ready to go by like game 10, 15, and you can keep that momentum going through the playoffs. So yeah, automatics are a big deal. I mean, it's how offense is basically being run now. Look at the Caitlin Cooper interview with Carlisle and the fact that he doesn't run a ton of plays, and that's just how the NBA is sort of moving in that direction, where you have like Euro style ball where play calling is so integral to how it's run because you don't have advantage creators like you do in the NBA. Where in the NBA, you have that inherent advantage creator typically on a team, and you just need to be able to get that micro advantage and then keep the ball moving, and that advantage just kind of grows as the ball is moved around the court. And I think that's where Mike Brown's the theory of the case is, and we'll see if this Knicks group can sort of see that through and flourish in it.
Yeah, it's almost playing just based on how defenders are playing and then how the offensive player with the ball plays. And it's reacting to those two things, automatics. Where am I cutting? Where am I moving? When am I screening? Who am I screening? These are all determined based upon what happens on the floor. It's not the coach telling you where you're going to go. It's the action before determining where you're going to go. And it's just playing with flow. And it is where the NBA has gone very clearly. And look, calling plays like set plays to open somebody up, those take time. And currency now, the shot clock, the seconds on the shot clock are a currency in the NBA, and you want to use as few seconds as possible to create your advantage, so that, to DJ's point, with every swing out, the advantage grows and grows until you get the most open shot possible. And that is how teams are playing, and that is the goal. And he will call plays. Certainly out of timeouts, he will call plays. But I think he is right to emphasize playing with flow and pace and trying to create those automatics and figure out those reads, really hammer them into each player so that they by some point in this season it becomes second nature to all of them. One thing I do want to say though is I would like to see them run some stuff, and we talked about this a lot last season, Deej, for Cat specifically to open him up for shots. And we talked about out of Hornets with Minnesota, that series they used to run with Gobert. Especially when he's playing with Mitch, because again, he's going to struggle to find shots when he's at the 4, when Brunson has the ball. And so I would like to see them as some sort of series where there's pin and screens, step out screens, whatever it is, to try to find Cat some shots. That would be nice. But I agree with the approach to kind of start here and then build up to more stuff.
Agreed. Dirty Dancer What I really want to know is if Benjy and DJ are buying into the scapegoating of Jordan Clarkson already. Well, Benjy has already laid down his flag.
I'm all in. I'm all
on
in.
Jordan Clarkson Island, so he is all in. No scapegoating there. And I'm not scapegoating Jordan Clarkson. He frankly will not. I'm trying to say this as kindly as possible. There won't be an opportunity for Jordan Clarkson to completely destroy this team in a way that is going to be scapegoat worthy. But I do think, and I mentioned this when they signed him, Benjy nailed it with the passing. He is a really good passer. And I think you were right to say that setting in Utah distorted that skill, which is really there. Like, he can get it to the second side. If he gets in the paint, he can read the help tag defender, get it to the weak side corner. He's a good playmaker who can hit open threes and just adds a little bit of, as I mentioned, diversity, chaos, whatever you want to use, the word you want to use. It's something the Knicks, to your point, Benjy, have lacked for a long time. And he's going to be maybe rejuvenated a little bit. I hate to use that intangible aspect to this, but he's still young enough to where you think he has the year of strong play left. And he seems to be a guy he's never been the most athletic. He's been more smooth and rhythmic and balanced than explosive. So I think what he has athletically should hold up a little better. And he keeps himself in excellent shape and great touch. And yeah, I think I do think he's going to have a important role on this team. I just worry a little bit about just the age curve. And I think any player, as they get into their early 30s, that has to be part in the back of your mind. But I do think maybe he might be a little more resistant to that based on just how he operates. He's not the most explosive player, never has been, and never needed to be to get to a spot. So yeah,
we're not
a positive sign.
Jordan Clarkson. X's and O's is a Jordan Clarkson positive space. Declaring it now. If you ask me about, can I scapegoat Landry Shamet? Landry Shamet might, if this doesn't go well, he might be number one. Reason why. Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We go out next.
All right. Wolverines, 1986. Double big lineup, a big no-no. Moving Cat to power forward makes this offense worse and takes away the big edge Cat has against opposing centers. Keep Cat at center. Benjy, you talked about this as how you viewed it coming into his tenure with the Knicks. I guess the question is, have you wavered a little bit on the best usage of Cat on the floor? Do you think it's clear cut that he should be the 5 to maximize the team, not just Cat, but maximize the team itself? Where do you stand on that? And seeing it through the playoffs last year.
So that's an interesting phraseology, because I do think it's fair that a perspective would change going into year 2, because when you make the investment in year 1 and you had a good thing going, now you lost Isaiah Hartenstein through no fault of your own. So things were going to change, but you didn't have to go get Cat. You had a good team. When you do go get Karl-Anthony Towns at his price tag, I do think it behooves you as a franchise to put him at his best offensive position that makes him a player worthy of a contract like that, because this is a your assets are limited. You do not get to spend all your money. And when this is how it works. Like, you are a percentage of the cap, and the percentage of the cap should determine how valuable you are. If you're investing correctly, then the size of your investment corresponds to the value you bring in. And the only way, to me, the Cat values at the price tag is if he's at center. Now, we're now in year 2 of that, and the goal isn't to make Cat the best investment. The goal is to win a championship. And I do think it is the case, and has been proven out, that at least some of Cat at power forward is not only viable, but can create a contender. Now, they were a contender last year with Cat at center. Mitch joining late and becoming an option at center, but you do need that flexibility. He needs to be able to play both 4 and 5, and I think he will play both 4 and 5. The fact that he starts at the 4 doesn't mean he's not going to finish at the 4, and it doesn't mean that he's going to play most of his minutes. We'll see, and especially with this Mitch injury stuff coming up, we don't know how this is going to shake out. So I wouldn't say double big lineup is a big no-no. It should be part of the formula, Whether it should be the starting formula, we'll see. I'm not sure, but I'm willing to give it a look. It certainly had its moments in the playoffs last year, and the goal has shifted a little bit from like, let's maximize this investment and see what it looks like, to okay, but now we got to be serious and go win a championship. And Cat at the 4 is a part of that. Is a part of that possible success.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it is worth mentioning that Mike Brown, while I think became known as this offensive guru a little bit in Sacramento, he is a defensive guy in his heart and is going to want to shore up that side of the ball first. And I think that's probably where that's a little bit of the maybe leaning towards a double big lineup or a Mitch starting is coming from, which again, as I mentioned, maybe not where I would go, but is certainly a defensible position to have at this point. Ben, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, Hakeem the Dream. Thank you for your generous contribution, my friend. I'm curious, why a Hakeem fan? What's your thought there? Looks like his icon is an oil rig. Is that an oil rig?
That looks like an oil rig. Yeah.
I don't really know what an oil rig looks like, but if oil rigs existed, that's how I think they might look.
Yeah. So, the only experience I have is the There Will Be Blood. I don't know if you saw it.
Sure. Yeah.
Daniel Day-Lewis film.
Yeah.
A lot of oil rigs in that movie. A lot of oil rigs.
That's a good point. And I think it looked like that kind of.
Yeah.
So, and I do recall the NFL team called the Houston Oilers.
Warren Moon.
The Houston Texans. So maybe this is a Houston-based person.
Wow.
Who
Look
therefore
at that
likes
is
Hakeem the Dream and likes oil rigs.
That's an LSAT worthy.
But my question is, what the hell is he doing? And again, we appreciate him. What is he doing here? And
I think
don't know.
He just maybe he lived through the 90s and was just taken by the domination of the Dream against our center and was like, then you know what? I'm just a lifelong fan now. I don't know.
I love it.
I love it too.
Well, maybe he's just trying to stir the pot, Hakeem the Dream, because he says the best player on the Knicks isn't Brunson or Towns. The best player is OG Anunoby. He is a top 3 Oh, wait a second. What? No, never mind. I was going to say, didn't OG go to Houston? But no, he went to Indiana. So I take that back.
Right.
I was thinking of Grimes. He is a top 3 defensive player in the league and has no real weakness offensively. Okay. I will disagree with our Houston friend. Though OG is really good. He is maybe at his best a top 3 defense player in the league. It might be a little hard to be that as a wing. But he's top 10, I think. He's up there, and he is the player on the Knicks with the fewest obvious weaknesses. He's the most maybe complete player on both ends. He's the best two-way player, if that's a thing. And I wouldn't say he has no real weaknesses offensively. He doesn't dribble all that well, so that is a weakness. And he gets blocked a lot randomly.
Yeah, not super explosive when he doesn't have a runway, right?
But he's really good. He's really good.
Awesome. He's awesome.
We haven't talked about him at all, and his fit in this is going to be interesting. The Bridges plus OG dynamic is interesting, and how those two don't can they complement one another, not be redundant in a lineup? Can one of them make above the break threes so that the other can be free to be in the corners? And can they be the wing stop that we thought we were getting? I think OG held up his end of the bargain for the most part last season. Bridges is the one that I think needs to really step up on that end. And I think, it's funny. We've gone this whole conversation to almost an hour now. Haven't mentioned OG. He's kind of we take him for granted, and he is kind of a given that he's going to give you what he's going to give you. He is a known commodity. He is a winning player. He is really good. And I wouldn't call him our best player, but I don't think it's insane just because of what you say, Hakeem the Dream, that he doesn't really have tremendous weaknesses. He's good on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of weaknesses. And, again, you don't take a lot away from some preseason, but I think frequency of shots maybe has a little bit of can translate a little bit in terms of this is an idea of like how we want to play. I don't buy into like the percentage of makes or misses, but if you're getting up a lot of threes, I think that is an intention, right? And Mike Brown talked about how he wants to get the Knicks into the mid 40s in threes per game. And I think they more than met that mark in the preseason. The big benefit there is OG Anunoby, because of those threes, the Knicks were top 5 in corner 3-point frequency in the preseason. OG Anunoby is usually a deadly 3-point shooter from the corner. I know that number wasn't great last year, but over the span of his career, he has been elite making threes from the corner. So you think you should, if you're going to have a faster pace offense that is going to puncture the defense and you get that spray out, that's going to benefit Anunoby. And Mike Brown has talked about, and this is the last thing before we can move on to the next one, is he needs OG Anunoby to run more. And I think when I talk about Bridges being a seamless fit in this offense, like Bridges is a natural runner. He just he's a gazelle out there. It's just very easy for him. And he doesn't get tired. He's a freak in that way. But Anunoby, I think he is such a dynamic transition player. I saw a stat going around, like he was in the top 6 or 7 this last year in points per possession in transition. And that's with him not making a ton of transition threes. This is him just getting to the rim and being a great finisher when he has that runway to finish above the rim. So I think if you can get more of that, and then we'll have to see about the decision-making within an offense that is going to require quicker decision makers. And I think that's where I'm a little not down on the idea, but I just want to see how Anunoby, a guy that's not necessarily known for quick decision making with the ball in his hands, how he's going to operate in that system. But I think in the transition idea, and then him making more threes, and he made a lot of a high percentage of above the break threes last year too. So that was a nice boon for the Knicks, a team that did not make a lot last year. So if you can get those two things, and then maybe the idea of him getting downhill with more driving gaps in space, that could be another way for him to generate some more offense. But you mentioned the Bridges Anunoby pairing. They don't interact a ton, and maybe you can get them in like split cut actions to be able to play off each other. Both good shooters, both good finishers, big wings. How do you take advantage of that? We'll see. But yeah, he's a elite two-way player, and I thought should have been at least on second. I don't think he made second team all defense last year, but he should have been on that team. And I think he's going to have that type of year this year if he can get the requisite games played.
Awesome. Thank you. Hakeem the Dream.
Thank you, sir. All right. Who do we have here next? We have NY City Sun. Thank you so much for the contribution and always interacting on over on X too. Appreciate that. Thanks for the show, guys. Love the Twitter content also. Yeah. So NYC City Sun has been a big follower of ours and supporter. As Benjy has mentioned a few times, we are going to be trying to do more of these this year on a frequent basis. And it's going to, we're relying on you guys. Frequent basis.
Wow. Okay.
What?
I didn't hear you. I thought you said freaky.
Or freaky. It can get freaky. I mean,
jeez,
you never know. Pushing 10 o'clock here Eastern time, get a little.
If X's and O's is known for anything, it's the freaky basis on which we podcast.
Yeah, there you go. This is where you come for the freaky side of KFS for sure. But yeah, we're looking forward to it because I feel like, we've obviously done a bunch of these, but it's not been as often. And this is a really good team. And I think it's an interesting year and a great year for us to be doing more of these because I think win or lose, good or bad, there's just going to be so much for us to sort of dissect and all learn together because the preseason did not give us a ton, to be frank, about what this team is going to look like in the regular season. And that's where the fascination for me is. And I think for you probably agree with that about where this team is. And we've had such a stability over the, since Tibbs was hired in 2019 that or 2020, it feels like there's a freshness and newness that we're all sort of learning together. And as we go through these X's and O's shows, you guys bring in the questions, helping with the conversation flow. It's going to be really fun to do these with you guys this year.
And get freaky,
And get freaky.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Is that the end of the super chat section, Deej?
It is, sir.
Terrific. All right. Well, this was a pleasure. Deej, it's great to be back with you.
Yes, sir.
Can't wait to hear that song again. Do you guys hear the song? Our man Kev Words put an intro song in. If you came in late, go check out the podcast.
Just listen to the intro song. You can turn it off after that. Just that was the best part of the show.
Deej, don't turn it off after that. But
no, I'm joking, but
definitely play it from the beginning because the song is epic. I was juiced. And listen, we're gonna be back. We're gonna be talking Knicks. We're gonna be talking X's and O's. We're gonna be talking all sorts of things. Everything that you could ever want to know about the New York Knicks, you can find here. Thank you all for being here with us. This is Benjy Ritholtz, joined by DJ Zullo. The Knicks Film School X's and O's show presented by FANATICS Sportsbook. Come back and see us again soon. Peace. We'll talk.